Elian Locke had never shared a ride with anyone in his life, not unless you counted the back of a chauffeured Bentley with his lawyer, so when his assistant told him the company Carpool initiative was mandatory for executives for 1 week, he almost fired her on the spot. He tapped his foot impatiently beside the curb outside Locke Enterprises. Wearing a navy wool coat that probably cost more than the car he was about to get into, his private driver had been reassigned. His Aston Martin sat untouched in his garage. And now, he was about to ride shotgun with a complete stranger because of a PR stunt. A red Toyota Corolla pulled up, a little too fast, and stopped with a jolt. The passenger window rolled down. "You, Elian?" came a voice, calm, low, and just slightly annoyed. He turned his head. The woman behind the wheel was not what he expected. She wasn't dressed for a corporate office. She wore a faded denim jacket, her dark curls escaping a loose ponytail, and red sunglasses pushed on top of her head. Her lips were painted cherry red, and her expression made it clear she was not impressed by his designer shoes. "Yes," he said, opening the door and ducking in. "You must be Greer," she answered, pulling out into traffic the moment his seatbelt clicked. "Greer Wallace. You're late. I'm always on time." "Well, then your watch is broken." He glanced at her, surprised. No one spoke to him like that. Not anymore. She drove like someone who didn't care about making enemies. She cut through lanes with confidence, drumming her fingers on the steering wheel to some indie song playing low on the radio. "This is what you drive?" he muttered, eyeing the outdated dashboard and cracked phone mount. "It gets me from A to B," she said. "You want a back massage and a minibar, call an Uber Black." He leaned back, lips twitching in something dangerously close to amusement. "Do you always insult your passengers?" "Only the ones wearing cufflinks before 9 a.m. Elian hadn't laughed in weeks. Not since the board started pressuring him to show humanity to the public. The Carpool initiative was supposed to make him seem more relatable. He doubted the PR team expected Greer. They hit traffic on Lexington, and Greer muttered something under her breath, then sighed and glanced at him. "So, Mr. CEO, what exactly do you do all day?" "I run a billion-dollar company." "Wow," she said flatly. "Do you want a cookie or just a statue in your name?" He blinked. "You know who I am? Everyone knows who you are. You're on the news every time you fire someone or buy another building. I don't fire people for sport." "Good to know. So if I drive you off a cliff, my job's safe." He turned to her fully now, intrigued despite himself. "What's your job at Locke Enterprises?" "Graphic design," she answered. "I make the things you ignore pretty enough so people pay attention." "I don't ignore. You definitely do. You probably didn't even know we had a design department." He didn't. Not specifically. But he wasn't about to admit that. They finally pulled into the underground garage. She parked in a regular employee space. No valet. No reserved nameplate. Elian got out, but paused before shutting the door. "Same time tomorrow?" he asked. Greer raised an eyebrow. "Unless you pull CEO rank and walk." He didn't, and he surprised himself by actually looking forward to the next morning. Over the next 2 days, the car rides became something else entirely. It started with silence, then snark, then music, then stories. She told him about her failed engagement 3 years ago, how she took in her sister's kid for a year after the divorce, how she never ate breakfast before coffee. He told her things he hadn't said out loud in ages. About how he lost his mom young, how his dad never hugged him, how the money didn't matter, not really. She listened. No judgment, no fake smiles. On Thursday, she brought him a blueberry muffin. "I don't eat sugar," he said. "Then give it back." He didn't. He ate every bite. Friday morning, as she pulled up, he noticed something strange. He was smiling before he even opened the door. She wore a mustard yellow sweater, her curls wild from the wind. He got in, and the car smelled like cinnamon. "I made coffee," she said, handing him a thermos. He took it. "This is nice. Don't get used to it." But he already was. That afternoon, the PR team ended the carpool mandate. Executives could return to their normal routines. When he got the email, he stared at it for a long time. The next morning, he stood outside his building at 7:30 sharp. A red Toyota pulled up. The window rolled down. "You're not required to do this anymore," Greer said. "I know," he said, opening the door. "But I still want to." She looked at him for a long beat. Then she smiled, slow and warm. "Get in, Locke. I don't have all day." And just like that, he did. Neither of them said it, but something had already shifted. By the time they pulled into the garage, Elian already knew. He didn't want the rides to end. Not now. Not ever. "You're not listening," Greer muttered as they waited at a red light. "You think visual branding is just about colors and logos, but it's psychology. Storytelling. People connect with emotion, not marble floors and gold lettering." Elian looked over from the passenger seat. "Then pitch it. To me. Right now." She blinked. "You want me to pitch a rebrand of your company while I'm holding a half-eaten bagel and trying to avoid potholes? I want to hear what you think Locke Enterprises should look like to the public." Unfiltered. Her fingers tightened around the steering wheel, but her voice stayed steady. "Fine. Get rid of the grayscale. It makes the company feel cold. Use deeper blues, keep the serif fonts but soften the edges. And stop using stock photography of people in suits shaking hands. It's not 1998. He raised an eyebrow. "Anything else?" "Yeah," she said, glancing at him. "Stop pretending like your company's only about profit. People want to see values. Show the community work. Real faces. Not just whatever charity gala your board writes off." The light turned green, and the car rolled forward. He didn't respond right away, just watched the city blur past the window. "That's the most honest critique I've ever heard," he said finally. "You're welcome," she replied, brushing a crumb from her lap. "I'll bill you for it." That afternoon, he called a meeting with his branding team. Not to share her exact words, he wasn't about to put her in the spotlight without warning, but her ideas stayed with him. He noticed things he hadn't before. How sterile the lobby felt. How even the welcome brochures looked like they'd been designed in a vacuum. He didn't say anything to her the next morning, but she noticed the difference in his silence. He didn't comment on traffic. Didn't check his phone once. Just watched her drive, eyes thoughtful. "Something on your mind?" she asked, tapping the brakes as they approached a crosswalk. "How long have you worked at Locke?" he asked instead. 5 years. "Why? You ever consider leaving?" She laughed. "At least once a week. But I like what I do. And I've got student loans the size of a mortgage, so." He leaned back. "What if I told you I was thinking about restructuring the creative division?" She glanced at him. "I'd say you're 2 years too late. But go on. I want someone who sees things differently. Not just someone who follows templates." She raised an eyebrow. "Are you offering me a promotion while I'm parallel parking? Would it make you say yes?" "I don't say yes easily." "I noticed." She locked the car, slung her canvas tote over her shoulder, and fell into step beside him as they walked toward the elevators. "You're serious?" she asked, glancing up at him. "Always." She studied him for a second. "Then prove it. Let me pitch a campaign. No filters, no boardroom edits. Just me." He didn't hesitate. "Monday, 10 a.m. She nodded once and stepped into the elevator. The doors closed between them, and he realized something strange. He already missed her. That weekend, he found himself at a bookstore he hadn't stepped into in years. There was no driver waiting outside, no assistant hovering with the schedule. He bought 2 books on visual marketing and a third on emotional branding, not because he didn't already know the basics, but because she had challenged him to see things differently. He read them all. On Monday, she walked into the executive conference room wearing a navy blouse and black jeans, carrying a tablet and a steaming travel mug. The room was full of men in tailored suits and women in structured blazers. Greer didn't flinch. Elian sat at the end of the table, hands clasped, eyes on her. "Everyone, this is Greer Wallace. She's here to present a new direction for our public image. She has my full attention. You'd be wise to give her yours." No one interrupted her. She spoke clearly, confidently. The presentation wasn't flashy, but it was real. She showed them mock-ups of ad campaigns with real employee stories, visuals that felt grounded but still aspirational. She spoke about accessibility, about warmth, about showing purpose beyond the profit margin. When she finished, the room was quiet for a beat. Then someone near the middle leaned forward. "You put this together on your own?" "Yes." "And you're not in a leadership position?" "No, I'm not." The man looked over at Elian. "That's going to be a problem." After the meeting, she lingered in the hallway, arms crossed loosely. "You were incredible," Elian said, stepping beside her. "You didn't have to do that," she replied. "Put me in front of everyone." "I did," he said. "Because you deserved it." Her gaze flicked up to his. "You know they're going to talk, right? Let them." She narrowed her eyes. "You're not worried about how it looks?" "The CEO giving special treatment to the woman he carpools with?" "No," he said, voice low. "Because this isn't about appearances. It's about merit. And you have more of it than most people I've met in a decade." She didn't reply right away, but her eyes softened. "Fine," she said. "But if I get pulled into some executive summit with finger sandwiches and artificial lighting, I'm blaming you. I'll bring real food. And natural light? I'll tear the roof off the conference room if I have to." That made her laugh, quick and genuine. "I'll hold you to that," she said. Later that week, he found himself lingering by the front entrance at closing time, waiting without checking the clock. When she finally appeared, her bag slung over one shoulder, she looked surprised. "You're still here. I was hoping for a ride." She tilted her head. "You have a driver. I'd rather ride with you." She looked at him for a long second, then unlocked the car. As they pulled into traffic, she said, "You know this isn't normal, right?" "What isn't?" "CEOs don't usually sit in passenger seats and ask for second opinions." He glanced at her. "Maybe that's the problem." She didn't answer, but she turned up the music a little. And this time, he reached over and adjusted the volume with her. Together, Greer didn't expect to be summoned to the 32nd floor. Not by name. Not by the CEO's assistant with a time and a room number and the phrase. He said, "It's important." The air up here smelled different, sterile, colder. She stepped off the elevator into a hallway lined with glass offices and muted art. When she reached the last door, it opened before she could knock. "Elian," she said, stepping inside. "You called." He stood by the window, one hand in his pocket, the other holding a folder. Behind him, the skyline stretched across the glass, the city bathed in the golden light of early evening. "I did," he said, motioning her in. "Close the door." She did, quietly. He turned and handed her the folder. "I want you to oversee this." She opened it, skimming the contents. A new initiative: public engagement, community partnerships, redesigned branding campaigns. Her name was listed at the top of the proposal under the title Director of Creative Strategy. Her stomach tightened. "This is real?" she asked. "I don't offer things I don't intend to follow through on." She looked up at him. "You're giving me a department. I'm giving you a chance to reshape the way this company connects with people." She set the folder down. "This doesn't happen. Promotions like this. Not without paperwork, meetings, 10 rounds of approval. I already handled it." She took a breath, then crossed her arms. "Why me?" "Because you're the only one who's told me the truth without trying to sell me something. Because you see things no one else here does. Because I trust your instincts." She studied him. "You're sure this isn't some elaborate way to impress me?" "If I wanted to impress you, I'd have flown you to Paris for dinner." "Don't joke." "I think you probably could." He didn't deny it. She walked to the window, her reflection faint against the glass. "If I take this, it changes things." "I know. People will wonder why. They'll figure it out eventually." She turned to face him. "And when they do?" He stepped closer. "Then I'll stop pretending I don't think about you when you're not in the room." Her breath hitched slightly. "Elian, I'm not asking for anything," he said, voice low. "Not yet. I just want you to take this role because you earned it. And if something happens between us after that, then it's not because of a job or a title. It's because you want it too." She held his gaze for a long moment. Then she nodded once. "All right, I'll take it." The next week was a blur. She moved into a corner office. Not the biggest, but filled with light and quiet. Her name appeared on emails she used to be CC'd on. People who never noticed her in the break room now stood when she walked in. She didn't carpool that week. Elian had insisted it would look too suspicious. She'd agreed reluctantly, but on Friday afternoon, just after 6, her phone rang. "Come downstairs," he said. "You're done for the week." "I still have." "No, you're done. Bring your coat." She hesitated, then grabbed her things and headed for the elevators. Outside, his car waited. Not the red Corolla, not a company vehicle. A black Jaguar, sleek and gleaming, with the passenger door already open. She climbed in, glancing at him. "This isn't subtle. I'm not trying to be," he said, shifting into gear. They drove north out of the city, past the noise and concrete. The roads narrowed, trees rising on either side. Eventually, they pulled into a quiet driveway leading to a house built of stone and wood, perched on a hill. He parked and looked over. "I come here when I need to think." She stepped out, the air cooler, the scent of pine in the breeze. The house was modern but warm, with wide windows and a wraparound porch. He unlocked the front door and motioned her in. Inside, it felt lived in. Bookshelves lined one wall. A record player sat near the fireplace. No staff, no noise, just him. "You live here?" she asked. "Only sometimes," he said, pouring her a glass of wine. "It belonged to my mother. She used to paint on the back deck." Greer took the glass, watching him. "You never mentioned her." "I don't mention a lot of things," he said. "But with you I want to." They sat on the sofa, firelight flickering across the hardwood floor. He leaned forward, resting his elbows on his knees. "I've spent years building a company that doesn't need me to feel anything. But I'm tired of feeling nothing." She looked at him, her voice soft. "You're not nothing." His eyes met hers. "Neither are you." The silence between them shifted, charged with something that had been building for weeks. He reached for her hand, took it slowly, like the moment mattered. She didn't pull away. The fire crackled. Outside, wind moved through the trees. He leaned in, close enough she could smell the cedar on his collar. "I haven't wanted someone like this in a long time," he said. "And I don't want to want you just because you challenge me or make me laugh in traffic. I want you when you're quiet. When you're tired. When you're not trying to be anything but yourself." Her pulse stuttered. She set her wine down carefully. Then she kissed him. It wasn't hesitant or shy, it was decisive, like something that had been waiting for the right moment. His hands found her waist, then her back, pulling her in like he was afraid she'd disappear. They didn't speak for a long while. When they finally did, it was only to whisper things meant for no one else. Things that didn't need to be said aloud but were anyway, because for once, neither of them needed to pretend. Not here. Not now. The following weeks passed in a rhythm neither of them had expected, but both had quietly begun to crave. They kept things careful inside the office, no lingering looks in meetings, no private lunches, but outside of it, everything unfolded with a quiet, consuming intensity. Elian didn't take her to the usual spots he'd once frequented with models and socialites. Instead, he took her to places that mattered. A jazz club tucked behind a bookstore in Soho. A family-run Lebanese restaurant where the owner greeted Elian like a son. A quiet cabin on a lake 2 hours upstate where he'd gone once a year to think and never brought anyone. Greer noticed the small things. He always asked questions instead of assuming. He touched her gently without possession. And he never once brought up the word label, but the way he held her hand when they walked through the city said everything. One night, they sat side by side on the floor of her apartment, eating Thai food from cartons and listening to a record she'd found at a flea market. Greer leaned back against the couch, barefoot and content. "You're not what I expected," she said, picking at the edge of a spring roll. Elian glanced at her. "Because I wear cufflinks?" "No," she said. "Because I thought men like you only saw the world in terms of leverage. But you listen like someone who didn't always have power." He set down his chopsticks. "I didn't." She turned her head. "You never talk about before the company." "Because it wasn't pretty," he said. "My father only saw value in what could be measured. Success wasn't celebrated, it was expected. And anything less than perfection wasn't worth acknowledging." She didn't press. She just reached over and laced her fingers through his. "You're nothing like him," she said softly. His expression didn't shift, but something in his shoulders eased. On a Tuesday morning, Greer stepped into the elevator and found Elian already inside, alone. He didn't greet her the way he usually did. His tie was gone, his sleeves rolled up, and his jaw was tight. She tilted her head. "What happened?" "The board's trying to freeze the community initiative," he said. "Says it's not yielding immediate returns." She crossed her arms. "Let me guess they want to fill the gap with another acquisition." He nodded once. "What are you going to do?" He met her gaze. "I'm going to fight them." "Good," she said. "Because if they kill that program, I'll be the one lighting the match under the protest signs." That pulled the smallest reaction from him, a quiet breath that might have been a laugh if he weren't so angry. Later that day, she found herself standing in the boardroom not as a guest, not as someone invited out of courtesy, but as a voice with weight. She presented numbers, case studies, and projections. She showed them stories, real people who'd benefited from the new direction. Elian sat beside her, silent until the very end. Then he stood. "If this company is only about stacking numbers, we'll survive another decade. Maybe two. But if we want to matter, if we want people to believe in what we build, we have to do more than just generate wealth. We have to create legacy. And that starts with investing in people." The vote passed narrowly. Afterward, in her office, Greer paced. "You didn't have to back me like that." "I wasn't backing you," he said from the doorway. "I was agreeing with you." She turned. "You're not afraid of losing control, are you?" He stepped in, closing the door behind him. "I've spent years controlling everything. But I've never felt more certain, more grounded than I do when I let go with you." She swallowed hard. Then let go. He crossed the room and kissed her like something final had been decided. That weekend she came to the house on the hill again, but this time it was different. The lights were already on when she arrived, and through the windows she saw something that stopped her cold. The back deck, once bare, was now covered in canvases. Dozens of them. Some half-painted, some fully alive with color. A breeze moved through the open doors, carrying the faint scent of turpentine and pine. She stepped inside slowly. "You did all these?" she asked. Elian emerged from the kitchen, sleeves pushed up, barefoot on the wood floor. "They were hers," he said. "My mother's. I had them in storage. Couldn't look at them for years." She turned to him. "Why now?" "Because you made me remember what it feels like to be surrounded by things that matter." She walked over to one of the paintings, a splash of reds and ochres, a skyline that looked like New York but felt like something softer. "She saw the world differently," Greer whispered. "So do you," he said behind her. She turned. "You're not afraid anymore." "I'm still afraid," he said, "but I'm not running from it." He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small velvet box, unadorned but firm in his hand. Her breath caught. "Elian, I'm not asking you to marry me right now," he said, "but I am asking you to take this, not as a promise of a future we haven't built yet, but as proof that I'm in this. All the way. No boardroom, no headlines, just us." She stared at him, heart thundering. Then she opened the box. Inside was a ring, simple, elegant, with a sapphire at its center. She didn't say anything. She just stepped forward and kissed him, long and quiet and sure. When she finally pulled back, she whispered, "Yes." He smiled, slow and certain. Neither of them said anything more. They didn't have to. The next week, she returned to the office wearing the ring. No announcement, no press release, just quiet certainty. Those who noticed didn't ask, and those who mattered already knew. The company changed with them. New campaigns launched not because they looked good, but because they meant something. Employees from departments that had once been ignored now had seats at the table. Elian never rode alone again. Every morning, he waited at the curb outside her building, not in a Jaguar, not in a town car, but in the passenger seat of a red Corolla, coffee in hand, smiling like a man who'd found the only thing in his life he hadn't known he needed. And Greer drove, one hand on the wheel, the other resting on his knee, the city rising around them like a promise they'd already kept. Rain slicked the windows of the boardroom as Greer stood at the head of the long glass table, the lights above casting a soft gleam against the polished surface. Across from her, a small group from the executive team waited, folders unopened, eyes expectant. Not because they doubted her, those days were long gone, but because the stakes had quietly shifted. This wasn't just a quarterly rollout. This was the launch of the new brand identity, the one she'd built from the ground up, the one Elian had entrusted her to lead without interference. She clicked the remote once, and the screen behind her lit up. "This isn't a redesign," she began, her voice calm but clear. "This is a reintroduction, not to our shareholders, to the people who walk into our buildings every day, the people who buy what we make, use what we build, and believe or don't believe in who we say we are." A silence stretched as the first slide shifted to a short film, the story of a single mother who'd started working in one of their manufacturing plants, then moved into logistics through their internal development program. It wasn't flashy. It was real. When the lights came back up, no one spoke right away. Then Elian, seated at the far end, said, "Run it everywhere. Every channel." "I want our name to mean something again." No one disagreed. After the meeting, she stepped into the elevator beside him. The doors closed, and he didn't speak until they were midway down. "You know," he said, "I've been watching you lead this company better than I ever have." She looked over. "You still lead it?" He shook his head. "Not the way you do." A slow breath left her. "I never planned for any of this. I didn't even want to stay at Locke long term. I was going to freelance full time. Move to Portland. Start over." He turned to her. "Why didn't you?" She met his eyes. "Because one morning you got into my car and everything changed." That night, back at the house with the stone siding and wraparound porch, Elian lit a fire while Greer stood near the back window, staring out at the forest as thunder rolled faintly in the distance. "When I was a kid," she said, "I used to think love had to be dramatic. Like in the movies. Big fights. Bigger makeups. Screaming in the rain." He set the lighter down. "And now I think it's this. Quiet. Steady. Safe." He crossed the room and wrapped his arms around her from behind, his chin resting on her shoulder. "You still scream in the rain," he murmured. "But only when you're driving." She laughed, leaning back into him. "I've been thinking about something," he said. "Should I be nervous? I want to step back." She turned slightly. "From what?" "From the day-to-day. I've done what I came to do. The company's stable. And it's heading in a direction I believe in. A direction you built. I want to spend more time living. Painting. Maybe figuring out what it means to be a partner who's present instead of one who's always chasing the next win." "You think the company's ready?" "I think it's better than ready. I think it has you." Her expression softened. "What does that mean for us?" "It means I want to build something with you that isn't tied to boardrooms and deadlines. I want to be wherever you are, doing whatever makes us feel most alive." She turned fully now, facing him. "Are you asking me to run the company?" "I'm asking if you want to. If not, we'll find someone else. But I trust you more than anyone. And if you say yes, I'll be standing beside you, not above, not ahead. Just with." She didn't answer right away. Instead, she reached for his hand. "Yes," she said. "I want it. I want all of it." Months passed. Under Greer's leadership, Locke Enterprises doubled its community partnerships, launched a mentorship program that spanned 5 cities, and opened its first innovation studio run entirely by creatives under 35. People started calling it a different kind of company. One that felt like it had a soul. Elian kept his promise. He painted again. He traveled. He read books without checking his phone every 10 minutes. And every evening he came home to the same place, the same person, without needing to prove anything. They married in the fall. Not in a ballroom or a cathedral. On the back deck of the house his mother had once painted in, with the wind rustling through the trees and a string quartet playing something slow and warm. There were no paparazzi. No press coverage. Just a few dozen people who mattered, standing in a half-circle as Greer walked barefoot down a path of dried leaves to meet him. She wore a simple ivory dress with a line of buttons down the back. He wore a navy suit, no tie, sleeves rolled to his forearms. Their vows weren't rehearsed. They didn't need to be. "I never believed in fate," he said, voice steady. "But I believe in you. Every day. Every version. And I believe," she said, "that sometimes the universe puts the right person in your passenger seat just to see if you're paying attention." They kissed as the sun dipped low and cheers rose through the trees. Afterward, there was wine and dancing, laughter spilling into the night like the kind that only comes when everyone knows they're exactly where they're supposed to be. Later, alone again, Greer sat beside him on the porch swing, her head on his shoulder. "Do you ever think about how it started?" she asked. He nodded, brushing her hand with his thumb. "I got into a car that wasn't mine, and found everything I didn't know I needed." She smiled, eyes closed. "You still drive like a maniac. You still insult my shoes." They sat in comfortable silence, the stars blinking awake above them. And there, in the quiet place they'd built together, they didn't dream of more. Because this each other, this life, this love was already enough. Forever.